Have you ever thought about what it would be like starting from nothing as a small YouTuber, grinding away, trying to build a community up from nothing, spending hours recording, editing, and uploading videos, while trying to manage the demands of real life? I know I certainly can't in any way relate to this, obviously. Yes, I'm being a bit facetious here, but it's hard not to project a little bit here, since I'm playing a game that basically is asking me to roleplay a role I already occupy. Today we're going to be taking a look at YouTubers Life 2, the, dare I say it, unexpected sequel to the rather successful but short-lived original YouTubers Life game back in 2016. I didn't play a whole lot of the original game, I admit. I played it a bit via its mobile port, since I had an iPad Pro at the time. I know it's shameful to admit that me, a PC player, actually plays on console and mobile sometimes, but hey, can't always play on PC. And you know what? The gameplay was, okay. Not terrible, but definitely way too simplistic, too obsessed with the quick-time event mechanics, and not very fleshed out. YouTubers Life 2 takes the handful of basic components that people liked about the first game, and refines and streamlines most of it in order to better appeal to a more casual player base. And I know whenever I or anyone else online talks about streamlining for the sake of broader mass appeal, that's almost always perceived as being an unequivocally bad thing. Here it kind of works out, mostly in the game's favor, but I do feel it's fair to say overall that it's not without its downsides, but we'll get to that later. While I won't be heavily focusing on all the many distinctions between this sequel and its predecessor, I do feel it's fair to say that both games were designed with completely different genres or perhaps sub-genres in mind. While the first one was far narrower in focus and probably had an equally small budget, this newest installment inches a bit farther away from the simulation gameplay in favor of introducing more RPG-light systems and mechanics. For example, the most heavily emphasized mechanic in both the first game and this one is of course the process of making a YouTube video, which takes the form of a card-based quick-time event. In the first game, you had a great deal of deck building where the player could collect a ton of cards and then organize them, for the most part however they liked. Here that system is removed in favor of just adding all the cards into the same collective pool and drawing from them at random. While someone else might nitpick over which approach is better or which is worse, I don't really care enough to be that person. To me, they're both different approaches. Not better or not worse, just aimed at different audiences. Similarly, in the original game, if you were in need of new computer parts, wardrobe accessories, or other items for YouTube content, you would order it from online retailers and the purchased item would just automatically appear in front of you almost immediately. The first game was ultimately all about you, and you. It puts the you in YouTube. YouTubers Life, whether intentionally or not, was very reflective of how YouTube as a platform was perceived during its earlier years. YouTubers Life 2, however, is a far more accurate, albeit equally satirical, portrayal of the YouTube we know today. The game makes this pretty obvious from the beginning with an opening cinematic showing us a small, nameless YouTuber uploading our very first video before then immediately being invited to join this enormous living community, living in a special insiders-only town where only YouTubers reside. While it works from a gameplay perspective, it's hard not to also see this as the obvious metaphor that it is, where similarly to the widely acknowledged American dream, we have what I like to think of as the YouTuber's dream, where almost every small creator has this completely diluted but genuine aspiration that one day all their hard work is going to just somehow pay off, with them going on to become one of the biggest and most influential creators within their designated field of interest. And they'll always be invited to sit at the cool kids table and hang out with their YouTube idols, get invited to all the best events, and in general be a valued member of this elite community. And as I mentioned in passing earlier, community is a very core thematic component on display here. YouTubers Life 2 makes the interesting choice of combining a top-down 3D perspective with a somewhat open-world-esque design philosophy. Similar to many of Nintendo's recent Switch titles, like Pokemon Sword and Shield, Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, or Animal Crossing New Horizons. And I feel fairly confident I'm not going to be the only person who will be making comparisons between this game and Animal Crossing, because the similarities by no means end there. But before we dive into the wider world of YouTubers Life 2, I do want to spend a few minutes diving into probably the most important set of mechanics, the act of recording, editing, and uploading videos, and conversely, participating in live streams as well. Earlier I laid out a more superficial description of how video making works here in the game, but it's worth noting that there is at least a minimal degree of sophistication involved. Over the course of usually between 5 to 10 rounds, depending on the complexity of the kind of video you're making, each round you'll be presented with about half a dozen cards, each of which will appeal to one or more factions of your audience, of which there are 5. Satisfying each aspect of your audience will will earn you 1 star towards the quality of your video recording. Effectively, combining your cards to appeal to the other types of viewers will earn you additional quality stars for a maximum of 5 stars. But it's worth noting that many of the cards may increase your score with one or more of the groups, while at the same time lowering your rating with another, so it can be very difficult, especially earlier on in the game when you have a smaller deck of cards for the algorithm to shuffle through to achieve more than 1 or 2 stars. Editing your videos can help too, although not significantly, I've found. Editing comes in the form of these simple logical puzzles where you have to mix and match the video clips, which all have different inputs and outputs, into a pattern which results in the least amount of mismatching. It sounds complicated, I know, but honestly it's really not. If you have the mental capacity to solve even one side of a Rubik's Cube, odds are you have the necessary fortitude to solve this watered-down conundrum. By upgrading your computer's various parts, you can alternatively earn additional editing points which can be used to apply various editing effects that will make this far easier, like automatically aligning the input and output connecting 2 individual clips, which correspondingly will help further your overall video editing score and in turn its overall score. While these systems may be simplistic, they aren't exactly bare bones. I spent most of my time in-game either recording videos, editing videos, conducting live streams, or buying additional equipment or resources to help my character become even more efficient in these areas. I more or less completely disregarded the dozens of YouTubers spamming my in-game phone or bursting unexpectedly into my room demanding I accompany them on some pointless side quest. I'd be lying if I said I even knew most of the time who these people were to begin with. A lot of the YouTubers featured here in the game seem to either be original characters in the game, or YouTubers that produce content outside my field of interest, being, gaming and tech. I personally do not know nor care about YouTubers who specialize in other fields like health, lifestyle, or fashion. I'm sure many other people do, but they're not the ones making this video. Point being, I ignore them and mostly embrace the world of YouTubers' life too at a healthy distance as an introvert. Not dissimilar to my own attitudes in real life towards communal activities. I'm simply not a big believer in cultural collectivism. One of the game's weakest, or least appealing aspects without a doubt, is the new RPG-inspired questing system where you have story quests, side quests, and other tasks, all of which will reward you with either in-game items, opportunities for additional exposure, to provide a temporary boost in your channel's growth, or just flat-out money-making chores. Go deliver this box to this random NPC that kind of thing. And no, I'm not even kidding, that's one of the kinds of tasks you can do. Because of course when you play a YouTuber simulation game, you're really looking to be a UPS mailman. What doesn't exactly help is that while the questing components are inherently weak, the navigation within the world is more or less non-existent comparatively. While luckily the open world itself isn't enormous and the instructions aren't so vague to the point where they require solutions similar to the original Legend of Zelda game on NES, where you have to burn down one specific tree in a large forest in order to get a necessary story item. The lack of direction here, combined with the at times somewhat insurmountable pressure of the day-night cycles, which are very short indeed, along with the fact that most quests can only be completed during the day, with only a select few taking place at night, results in you really needing to know at all times where to go, and oftentimes this can only be discovered by wandering around until you run out of time, or restarting from your last save file, which autosaves every new day, and starting the day over and over again until you find where you're supposed to go. I didn't have to do this in the majority of instances, but it happened often enough, especially during my first few hours playing, where I did find it more than a little annoying. While the game does have a full screen map you can open up to get a basic layout of the district you're in, and it has different kinds of icons to represent what kinds of locations are in that district, like tech stores, gaming stores, clothing stores, food vendors, etc. There doesn't seem to be any way to clearly identify the names of those stores without going to those locations yourself. This is somewhat problematic because all the stores share the same type of icon. Like all clothing stores, for example, will share the same exact icon on the map. And if you have to do a quest where you have to go to a particular store, unless you already know off the top of your head which district it's in, you're going to be experiencing quite a lot of confusion like I illustrated earlier. There is a decent amount of character customization on display here. Granted, I don't really care much about it. I liked how my character looked from the start, hence why I picked the cosmetic options I did, so why would I bother changing that up? I do think there is a missed opportunity here to at least make some attempt at integrating the cosmetic side of things into the RPG system. Give your in-game content creator more of a boost if they significantly overhaul their appearance or their background. Something like that would be pretty cool. The game does indicate that there is some kind of tiny boost along these lines that you can already get, but it must be so insignificant I simply haven't noticed it. It certainly hasn't seemed to have any impact whatsoever on the reception of my video uploads or live streams. I just don't know how you mess up the concept of a sandbox RPG. Hell, even that recent Life is Strange game, True Colors, had a better RPG system, And that game wasn't even an RPG, they just dedicated part of one episodic chapter to an RPG minigame, and it was better handled there in many aspects than it was here. I think the ultimate problem is that YouTubers Life 2 is constantly being pulled in two directions at once. On one hand, it's very reluctant to entirely forsake the fundamental gameplay of the original game in favor of an entirely new formula, but at the same time, many of the newer features either don't have enough depth to be interesting, or they feel rough and unrefined, and somewhat alien to the core gameplay loop. Whether or not you choose to buy the game or not is ultimately up to you. Personally, I had a decent enough time playing it. Am I likely to go back and keep playing it beyond the release of this video? No, probably not. But at the end of the day, I got 10 or 12 hours of value out of it, and for a game whose retail price is set at $29.99 USD, that's not too bad in terms of its value proposition. It's a decent enough game, nothing great, nothing terrible, but just good enough. YouTubers Life 2 is basically the ramen noodles of satirical simulator games. As usual, if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, please be sure to give this video a like, share it around, and definitely let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm always up for some healthy and vigorous debate in my comment section. We don't all have to agree, I don't expect all of us will, but as long as we can keep things fairly civil, I'm more than happy. If you want to support the work I do in this channel, since I am a fairly small creator, and unlike in YouTubers Life 2, I can't just click a button to instantly become a trending name here on YouTube, subscribing and clicking the bell to opt into getting all notifications would really help go a long way. YouTube doesn't make it easy for people to find my videos, and it only takes maybe 2 button clicks to subscribe and enable notifications. It's a little effort that can go a long way, plus it'll make you one of the first people to know when a new video goes live. This is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, stay safe, and peace out.